Welcome to the Low-Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast. Tro's running a little late, so I get to have all the fun right now. So I'm sure he's gonna pop in the middle and distract all of us and all that. Oh, look at that, Tro!
Right on time. 1 minute
my
before the
goodness.
prediction.
Tro, we haven't started yet. We were just starting, and I said Tro said he'll be here at 10:10. It's 10:09. You beat it by 1 minute, man. Tro, I give you a bonus points today.
Doctor, how are you? Sorry,
Good, thanks.
I just had a ground rounds with Neil Flock, so I couldn't miss it because I needed to absolutely demolish him. So it was a grand rounds, and they had asked me to attend. This was we had a heated discussion. I knew it was going to go over. So anyway, I'm sorry, Brian.
So what was the discussion? Just give us a nutshell.
Yeah, nutshell. He said it's genetics, and I was like, well, you're talking in the institution where I was chief resident 10 years ago, and my genes haven't changed, and I've kept 150 pounds off. So help me understand this. And then I wrote notes here. He said a slide that diets, decrease energy expenditure and increase ghrelin. And I was like, you can't lump all diets together. Low calorie diets do that. Low carb diets don't. So, he went off and pontificated, and then
yes, Tro, we agree. I mean, we have all kinds of stuff. It's going to be fun. I'm talking to San Diego, and I've been reading some great research on all this stuff. And you go, wow, a lot of these stuff, I mean, they're dead in the water. A lot of this stuff where they're talking about genetic stuff when people can maintain it, and how much is genetic, epigenetic, how much is family stress and cortisol and ACE and all these other things that we talk about. It's really amazing.
I mean,
Tro, we have a great guest, so we'll talk about your victory. We'll talk about your victory later.
Sorry.
I'm so glad you could have that. Did you give him a hug at the end? And
No, it was virtual. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, absolutely not. So
did you raise his cortisol levels and stress hormones and all that?
Definitely, yeah. And then I asked him he mentioned briefly alcohol use, and I was like, can you talk about food addiction and addiction transfer? You briefly mentioned suicide and alcohol and weight regain, but how does this all fit together? And he's like, well, I leave that to nutritionists and psychiatrists. And I was like, well, we know they don't do well. Look at the obesity epidemic. We failed all these people, So it was like, I don't think you really, he said, I don't hear a question in there, And I was like, no, there's a question, do you feel that we're accurately, and we're
doing a good job of this?
Yeah. Are we actually doing a good job? And he's like, well, in bariatric surgery, we do a good job,
We do?
That's what he said.
Does he do long-term follow-up or just the first couple of years? Anyways.
Yeah.
Tro, we have a great guest today.
Okay. So I'll let you, sorry about
We're going to let Maira tell us all, because I can't pronounce anything in Portuguese. Your people said, all of our stuff's in Portuguese. Good luck, Brian. I'm like, okay, I think I might need a little help. So welcome.
Thank you. You've done well so far. It's Maira. You said it correctly.
I got it. I know, because you coached me beforehand. Thank you. Maira, tell people about you. Tell them what you're doing, your clinic, your training, all this kind of fun stuff, and where you are.
So the fun stuff is that I live in Brazil. Not really. It's not fun. But anyway, I'm a doctor. My specialization is anesthesiologist, and I have a PhD in this area as well. And it was only after all that I stumbled upon low carb with the Gary Taubes book, the Why We Get Fat and What to Do About It. And he's the one to blame for all this change in my life. And nowadays I don't work in ORs anymore. I make sure that my patients don't need to go there for chronic diseases like arterial obstructions, for chronic inflammation and insulin resistance. So my journey so far, I stumbled upon low carb, and then with intermittent fasting, I got in touch with Dr. Fung, and he was kind enough to allow me to go there to IDM clinic. And it was a wonderful experience. I got to see how he worked, and also how Megan managed the group sessions. And it was like really amazing for me to see how it went, like the real deal. So after all that transformation, now in my clinic, I attend patients with metabolic diseases, all the ones related to insulin resistance. So it's not only diabetes and obesity. So it's been a joyful ride since then.
Yeah, and it's amazing. We met briefly in Denver. We were figuring out, I'm like, where do we meet? It was in Denver, and you were leaving, and we had a little nice discussion there. And and you've been on such a road to knowledge and discovery. And it's funny, Tro, how many guests talk about Jason Fung, you and I included, having a massive influence, and I don't hear all these other guys who criticize him being named once.
You're absolutely right. He's just and incredibly welcoming, and I think his book is now in like what, 10 languages,
I think maybe more.
Yeah, probably more. So absolutely, he's definitely a commonality here, inspired us, and I think just another warrior for metabolic health. Gary Taubes, Nina Teitschultz, all of these sort of warriors. Starting like Finney, Volek, we often, don't mention them enough, but, dating back to Atkins, and now it's us three, now it's us three. So
the next generation.
Yeah, we're the next generation. So
I'm still in the old generation, but I still get it. I'm in between. I'm a tweener.
No, yeah, we'll make you young today.
All right, thanks, man. I'll take it. I feel young today.
Can you tell us just like a little bit about how it's been because your practice now is how many years old? Your metabolic clinic?
The metabolic is 5 years old. 5
years. So how has it been in sort of Brazil, going against sort of the mainstream? Some of the messages they're going to hear from you are not exactly the messages they hear from the mainstream. How has it been, working with other doctors in that area? I know you have a partner in your clinic that you work with. So can you walk us through sort of what it was like to get started, and what are the challenges you faced along the way?
Yeah, so I started, I was still an anesthesiologist, and then all of my colleagues, the doctors that used to mock me for fasting while during my shifts, they suddenly became interested in asking me to look up at his labs. So it was like this that I shifted to the clinic. My husband works with me, and he's a head and neck surgeon. He's the one that works in the same clinic, but he doesn't do anything metabolic clinic. He just gets the thyroid cancer patients, and he always tells me, oh my goodness, my patients are all very metabolic. I will never look at cancer anymore the same way because of you. Sometimes I think about melanoma, acral melanoma. I don't know if you say it acral, like toes and stuff, like places where you don't have sun exposure. I don't know the name in English. But anyway, he always says, how can you have melanoma in hidden places and not think about metabolic changes? So that's the most metabolic my husband gets, but he totally gets it because he's a low-carb athlete. He was a triathlete, low-carb, high-carb gel eater. And then suddenly in these 5 years, he's completely changed the way, even his body composition. But anyway, I started by myself. Nowadays, I have nutritionists and doctors that I can always refer my patients to, but I'm still alone. And I've been struggling a lot because of this. And I see that you have community, like, how do you say, groups. And I think this is something that is really missing for my practice, because I have a lot of different kinds of patients that come to me. One big portion is patients that know me from Instagram, because in Brazil, Instagram is way bigger than Twitter and YouTube channels and stuff like this. So I get very well-educated patients on low carb, and these patients are easier to manage because they already know everything. We've been badly educated on nutrition. So they've gone through that awakening, if we can say, awakening from the food pyramid from the 1970s. So these kinds of patients, I usually don't have any struggle. We just help them get better. But I have many doctors here in the region that have suddenly seen patients get better, like pre-cirrhotic NASH, right? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, fatty liver disease.
Yes, fatty liver disease. So I have a few pre-cirrhotic patients that I have completely reversed it. They even have Mallory alterations in the microscopy and stuff, was really bad ones. And then when the hepatologists realize we can reverse that with diet and intermittent fasting, now I get many patients that have no idea what low carb is. They think the right way to eat is oatmeal and a lot of sugar and fruits, and oatmeal is healthy, and everything. This is the struggle. So this kind of patient, I still struggle a lot. I have to go like in a very slow, stepwise manner, and I suffer, and they often fall off the wagon and never come back. So I have very good patients that have transformed their health, but I still struggle a lot with those that come referred from other specialists and have no idea how to start. And it's a lot for a doctor working by myself, so it's hard.
Yeah. Can I talk about this?
Yes.
I always get a criticism. So listeners of the podcast, if I'm talking a lot, I apologize in advance. Because everybody wants to hear you. They're going to be listening and they're going to be like, Tro's talking a lot, but I know we said we'd talk a little bit about this. So one of the things we found that is absolutely needed is the patient is ready to see you probably months to years before they come into your clinic, right? So they are ready. There's some lag time between when they're seeing you and when they come to your clinic. And so if we're thinking about how is it that we can reach people, how can we get them started before they see you or get the lab work done or get the CGM or whatever it is, we have to think differently. So how can we create resources before they see you, right? So that they can start to change, right? How can we get them talking the same language, thinking the same language? So this is and this is challenging, but this is where, sort of our app has become a great hub where they can start a low carb course. We have live courses every 4 times a year where they can just go in, it's for a month, like how to get started with low carb. Right now, like it's August, so I don't know when this will come out, but we have a how to get started with fasting, and that runs 4 times a year, right? And then we have another course where it's just everything you need to know, how to eat on a budget, what do you need to know about liver health, blood sugar levels, And so the idea is they shouldn't have to wait to come to you. They should be starting to learn already. And then when they get to see you, they should have a defined curriculum so that they can get everything that you have. It's all up here. How are they going to get that? Right? How many years did it take all of us to get insight on metabolic health? How many years before you learned it were you able to even explain it to your physician husband? Right?
Yeah.
Like that probably took some time, even a physician.
Yeah.
Right? So
especially because I'm his wife, so it took a while.
But so I think we have to start to think differently, and that's what this podcast has been about. I mean, I remember Brian was saying, Tro, we're going to reach people before they ever come in. They may not even need to come in because they got what they needed.
Yeah, I have created 3 years ago. I had the same like insight, and then I created a digital course where people that know me from Instagram can begin fasting, and I have like more than 70 hours there. Where and I thought, well, what would I wanted to know? My patients wanted to know before they came to my clinic, so I created that. It's a digital course, but not many people are aware how much they need to know before they start to change. So they often think it's just like, oh no, I just need a doctor. She'll look up at my exams, my labs, and then she'll figure it out. So sometimes people have no idea. It's our fault as well, because medicine, the way we learned, it was like for acute diseases. So if you have a headache, you get a painkiller and then you get better. So this is how we educated our patients as well. So they think we're gonna solve their problems with a medication and not with lifestyle changes. So it takes a while. Sometimes it takes like a whole year. I have many patients that come from that digital course, and when they come here, it's amazing. It looks like when you look at their labs from the past, it's just, you say, well, you actually almost don't need me anymore. So, but it's not like, not everybody realizes they need to educate themselves before they come to an appointment. So I think we have to combine all these informations and get people wherever they are.
And not only that, right? They're going to get different messages. You said they're getting referred to you by another doctor, and that means there's another dietitian and another nutritionist and their grandmother and their mom and their aunt who thinks that they're crazy, right? Like, just like they looked at you, a certified anesthesiologist, and your own colleagues are like, what are you doing? You know, fasting. So they're going to get that kind of pressure. So not only do you need this course, but you need a way to like keep them engaged, right? Like,
yes.
You know, and it's very challenging.
So how do you think, I'm gonna interview you if you don't mind. We have to tell everybody how this podcast today was created, the idea of it, because I asked Tro the same question. I'm gonna do it right now live. It was by email, and he said, let's make this a podcast. So I have to interview him, if you excuse me. So Tro, what do you think is the ideal time we have to check up on patients, like in your groups? How often do you see them, and how often do you think your health coach seeing them is ideal from your experience so far?
Brian should definitely tackle that too after I'm done. So I think it matters where the patient is in the journey, right? So we have multiple ways for them to connect with live people, right? We have a live group, a 1 hour group once a week. We have half-hour topic-based groups every week on Wednesday, separate, right? We have small groups where if they want more, like a small group attention, we also have those once a week. And this is on top of the medical care. So in medically speaking, they may see you once a month, and they may see health coaches more frequently than that. So I think it depends. Our front desk, when you call us and say, I want to be a patient, the first thing I'm going to say, what's your medical goal? If it's like, I want to lose weight and I want to make a major change, that's medical. That's an intensive program. If it's like, I've already lost the weight, or I just want to check my lipids, or I lost weight and it's not an issue, I want to focus on fatty liver and blood pressure, well, that's medical, and it needs less frequent follow-up. The problem is we're living in an environment where our patients are under attack, constantly under attack. Their church function has donuts. Their doctor, their dentist gives out cookies. Their kids are eating, fast food. So when you're dealing with lifestyle, right, one of the big things we've done is how do we engage that patient to reach out when they are struggling? How do we make it like we educate our patients right now? We all say, this is a stroke. You're going to get facial numbness, maybe some slurring of your speech. Your hand's going to get weak. Your leg's going to get weak. You may lose balance, right? And when that happens, you need to call right away. So we've educated them. We've also given them, here's the stroke hotline, here's 911, call right away for help. So we've empowered them, or if they have chest pain and they're having a heart attack, like if you're feeling left-sided pain or you're dizzy or you have belly pain, it's not going away, it doesn't feel right, you know, there's an elephant on your chest, whatever, you're weak, you're short of breath, call right away, right? So we have to educate them what they're up against and tell them, you know, you need to engage in this process right away. Now, they may not call right away because a heart attack doesn't have as much shame as lifelong obesity and metabolic disease. So we have to deconstruct that shame, which is hard, establish that trust, which is hard, and then like at least reach out. You know, I would say once a month is a minimum connection, right? Minimum, some sort of connection, right? That would be my, I don't know, Brian, I've talked too much, and Brian, I'm going to shut up, I promise. Go ahead. I'm going to let you talk.
Do you promise? Do you promise, Tro?
I'm going to mute it even. So.
Yeah, mute him. Hey, I can mute you too. Let me see. No, I think it's critical. I agree with Tro. I hate to say this, but I agree. It's 100% patient dependent. What are your goals? What do you want to do? Do you just need to get shoved back on the right track? And you have tons. Some people come in and have tons of education, and sometimes you have so much education that it paralyzes you because you are like, Ken Berry says this, Tro says this, Brian says this person says this, you know, the carnivores say this, the vegans say that, and they don't know what to, they're like looking at so many pathways, they don't know where to go. So sometimes they just need to be saying, okay, look here, why don't we try this? And then some people, I have some patients, I look at them and go, you don't need me. You are self-regulated. You're saying, oh, I'm not exercising enough. I'm exercising too much. And they pull the levers and they're saying, hey, I tried this, and they're trying to see what works for them. Other people are just like, this is what I'm going to do. Even if it's working or not, I'm going to keep doing it this way. And you're like, you're not getting success doing that. We got to figure something else out. So some people need, and I will tell you, this is a perfect example. I have a patient who's been avoiding me for a year. His A1C back then was 9 point something. And I go, you're a train wreck. We got to get you set. And here's what we're going to do. We put him on a game plan, all that. And he's canceled. Busy guy, type 1.5 diabetes. And so finally I say, look, we got to talk. Let's do this. I want to make sure you're okay. His A1C actually has come down into the 6 range, which is great with some little lifestyle. But really, he goes, I'm embarrassed to talk to you because I haven't been doing all the stuff you told me. I know what I'm supposed to do. And we went through this, and he goes, I have a lot of work stress. And so the reality is it education? Well, here's the problem with education. While we're talking, I say, you know, I really want you to focus on weight bearing exercise, get your activity up. You know, I know you have a stressful job, the stress hormones, all these things that will help you. And as soon as we're talking about weight bearing exercise, his wife starts cracking up and she's laughing, like she can't help herself from laughing. And then he starts laughing. I'm like, what is so funny about exercise? You guys are both laughing when I bring up exercise. And she goes, he has a degree in exercise physiology. The guy tells me every single day how important exercise is, all the stuff it does. It lowers the stress hormones, raises the, you know, it does everything right. It helps with oxytocin release, everything. He hasn't put his running shoes on in over a year. But every day he's telling me how good it is. And it's that. And he starts laughing. He goes, yeah, I know all the benefits. It's just, I'm going to go get sweaty and I got to put my shoes on. I'm tired after work. So sometimes you need someone to encourage you. Hey, how was your exercise this week? How is it? And so sometimes you need something where you have a lot more. And I'm telling you, looking back at the ACE questionnaire and childhood abuse and traumas and all the stuff we go through, those people really we have to get under the hood. You can't just say eat low carb and everything's gonna be great. You can't just say eat meal, page number 3 or 4 or whatever it is, and everything's gonna be great in your life now. No, you have 5 things you got to focus on, right? Metabolic health, sleep, stress levels, how you're interacting with other people, your relationships. Do you have support at home? Tro and I have been hammering these points home because we see who fails and who succeeds. And the ones who succeed are the ones who show up at the meetings, the ones who show up to the Zoom meetings, the ones who are engaged and they want to learn from each other and they want to be seen and they want to be heard and they want to help other people. That is what it's about, when you have community. And so that's what Tro's doing a great job. And I'm going to probably jump over to the dark side and start using his app, because the more I can get engaged, they could hear from me, Tro, you, and you could come on and do a guest thing and we could all get people engaged. And if they want to. If Wednesday night's not good for you, how about Tuesday afternoon? How about Thursday in the morning? And then there's a place where you really are going to lose all your excuses if you have a 24/7 access to community. And if you don't have community, you're more than likely going to fail. You need a community. You need someone who's going to say, hey, you look great. Oh my gosh, how much weight have you lost? Oh my gosh, your skin looks great. Whatever it is, we need to see that. And, when people can overcome, and then they can say, you know what, I overcame eating cookies every night, and then I can help the next person. And there's benefit to that from everyone. Everyone benefits. So I think that's the thing, is the more engaged we can be, with these mirror reflexes and neurons in our brain, the better we do. So I think we're on the right track of saying, I need to really engage with that. If you see someone once a year, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck. Because by then they crash and burn,
Can I also add to that?
You say we've muted you. What happened?
Well, I kept my mouth shut for a bit. He
was shaking.
He was shaking, nervous. I saw Tro shaking, like, I want to say something. We all saw that.
No, but so the other part of it is also people transition from their needs. So they transition from being involved, right, and having a good streak, to wanting to withdraw and
hiding
and hiding a little bit, and that is a very vulnerable time. So I think this is the point. If a certain amount of time lapses, so every we have health coaches here in our clinic. If it's like just to say, how's everything going, and if you don't respond, they're going to ask you again. If you don't respond again, they're going to call you. And it's like we have ownership of each patient. Like there is a clinical team, an MA, a health coach, and a doctor, or a PA. We hired Mary. We'll talk about that. But and Laura Buchanan and Matt Calkins but we have
one too, Tro. I got Leah now. She's awesome. So I'm excited. I'm at the.
I can't wait to meet her. I got to meet her. But we have we have people who own that patient, and it's like, and we've been we've had we used to do it a couple times a year. And one of our patients was like, I just needed a little more. And that's all it took. One person to say, I need a little more contact. And so now we tell people, look, once a month, we're going to send you a thing, and you're going to say how you're doing. And if they're hiding from a scale, or they're too stressed to go on a scale, if they're hiding from a CGM, too stressed to go on use the CGM, hiding from a blood pressure monitor, too stressed to use a blood pressure monitor, and they don't respond, right, to a text message, we're like, you need to come in. You need to come in, and we need to figure out what's going on. And, because this is a vulnerable period, and they're going to say, no. And you're going to say, why not? Right. And so we have this another piece, which is, there's certain time periods where people's habits have changed because of stress, and they're now back to old habits and back to old things. And so we have we deploy like a certain way of handling those people, and that's much more frequent contact and engagement. It's not like we're just going to meet you. We're going to give you something to do. You got to show us you did it. You're not going to meet with Alice, our personal trainer. She's not going to teach you about exercise and how to do exercise. And what she's going to say to you, buy these bands. Then she's going to watch you a week later when you get the bands, you actually using those bands. So we have to promote action in those people and not let them withdraw. Sorry.
We might let our guest speak a little bit. Maida, what do you
I was going to ask you. No, I'm very happy to hear that, because this is a conversation I really wanted to have. So I'm very happy. Don't worry. Tro and Brian, I don't know if you do the same, like the same way you don't work with in Tro's, right? Tro's clinic.
We might as well be brother and sister,
Okay.
Or brother.
I was
Sorry.
gonna ask you about the CGMs.
Yeah.
How often do you check on the CGMs? Like, do you wait for the patient to come back to check on his chart, or do you always check it? Do you have like a routine, like, oh, today I'm gonna check the patients that have come to my clinic 1 month ago, or every 15 days? Do you have any like routine to do it?
Yeah, we do, but I mean, it's complicated, but let's just say everything flows into a database, and we look for certain things like glycemic variability, lack of checking, right? The biggest warning for us is lack of checking. It's not anything, you know, if it's going high and they're checking, it means like they're aware of it, and but lack of checking is probably more important than them checking, you know, and lack of checking is probably even more important than glycemic variability. So if you had to say to me, what's the most important thing? It's not interacting. Then the next most important thing is, you know, a roller coaster, right? So, and then the next most important thing is, you know, the morning, the deviation from their baseline, right? So if they were historically an A1C of 5 and now they're 6, that's, you know, another important thing. The same is true for weight, by the way. So part of what we've had to do is automate some of this so that, you know, we can use software to alert us who's at risk. And that's been a challenge, but that's the fun part of medicine, is like thinking, like, how do we get to people? So yeah, we do scan like our group, you know, our cohort. So, but if they're getting a CGM, usually they're in an intensive program. So we're going to have constant interaction. Does that make sense? So
yeah, it does. It does. As I'm by myself, that's why the kind of questions very specific, and I'm being very vulnerable live here, because this is the most, like, where I struggle the most. Sometimes when I see patients not checking, I already know something's off, but I often feel like it's always a big question if you are invasive enough to say, hey, you're not checking on your CGM, what's the problem? And sometimes, like, we're
most
always
important question,
careful, you know, because we don't want to break the relationship.
No, that's the most, like, we're here to help you. How can we help you? Is our, like, the motto is, how can we help you? This is, you know, we get worried often. We get worried when we see lack of, you know, stepping on a scale, or, you know, is there anything we can help you with? Right. So now this like, what is there? What is that? How can that? It's like, you've paid for me to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm here for this. So I think it's just, you know, remembering that we have to reach them. And that's what Brian does so well. You know, like, they have to trust you, and you have to reach them, and they have to know you're like, that you're them, you're on their side.
Yeah. And some people have no one that's on their corner. Like, we're it. So, like, you need us at that point. Like, I have had people I want to fire. I go, hey, you don't need me. You're doing great. Look, you go, no, I need you. I need the accountability. If I know I'm not seeing you, I'll eat cookies. So it's those, or I know that you'll see it. Like, I don't care if I see it go up, but other people are like, I don't want to see it go up. I want to. So it just depends on we all have different personalities. Obviously, that's why there's not one size that fits all, right? We start realizing. And so if I have someone that's on insulin, there's someone I'm monitoring closely right now. We're trying to taper her off insulin. So she saw me the next day, she stopped all of her insulin. I'm like, no. It doesn't work that way. We're going to start cutting the dose down slowly. We're going to do it patiently. We're going to follow your sugars, right? She stopped everything. I go, no, that's not what our plan is. So clearly there was a miscommunication somewhere along the line. We're going to do this slow. We're going to be patient. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. So other people just seeing that continuous glucose monitor, you know, and I'll tell you, the other thing is that I think shows that people are invested is they'll eat cookies and they put on their continuous glucose monitor, 8 cookies on Friday, or I did this on Saturday. I ate pizza. I had a soda, and you could see the results. And then I'm not going to yell at them about that. I go, oh, I'm glad you put that on there, because if they avoid it and don't put anything on there, and I don't know why their sugar went to 300 that day, right? They could have been stressed. They could have worked out really hard. It could be so many factors involved, but it gives us an opportunity to talk. Go, hey, when your sugar went to 300, how'd you feel? Oh my gosh, you know what? I was in a situation. What are you going to do next time you're in that situation? You know what? I'm going to bring my own dessert next time I go there, or I'm going to do this. And so people can plan that, because so now the worst thing that we can have in our patients is being out of control. Where they're out of control, they go, I can't help it. I'm just eating all this stuff. It's like, okay, what can we do to do better next time? Because like you said, we're dealing with addiction sometimes. Sometimes we're dealing with, that's my way of relaxing, or that's my stress reduction, you know? And that's when we go back and we have to look under the hood. It's like, why is it that I can't give up donuts or cookies or whatever your weakness is, or sourdough bread for a lot of people? You know, why is that? Why is it that my life is dependent on me eating sourdough bread? Why is that? You know, and then you can go back and look at that.
Actually, I have a phrase before I make the question. So Tro, I'm talking more than you right now. I have a phrase that works very well. And I always tell my patients that we have to change, to swap the guilt for curiosity. So then we can make the most out of the CGMs. So when you do something wrong, you can observe if you were anxious after that, if you were like feeling very bad, or if you had reactive hypoglycemia, and if you ate the rest of the fridge after 2 hours from the first binge eating. So I think it's very useful to say swap the guilt for the curiosity. It works. But I was going to say, before we started the interview, can we zoom in food addiction patients? Because what I realized is half of my patients that just needed the education, they just flip the switch and reverse metabolic diseases. But the other half, they've been eating for stress for like decades, and they're not gonna suddenly get better in 3 months, 6 months supervision. So this is the big deal. And it's on them that I have the most questions about it, because fighting food addiction by myself, I know it doesn't work. So my biggest unsuccesses in my clinic are the food addiction. And I think this is such an important matter. So if Tro just came from that round where he could talk about how our genes can support our diet, our modern diet, and our ancestor genes are still the same, how can we deal with it? What would you say?
That's a great question.
And difficult.
Yeah, so no, I don't think it's difficult. One is defining what it is, and Dr. Jen Unwin and a group she's putting together is literally we are going to put a consensus statement together with her help, really her spearheading this to really define what it is. And I think if our medical doctors can't define what it is, how can the patient define what it is? How can they know what it is they're fighting against? When I'm sitting with my wife and she says to me, maybe you shouldn't have that pizza, right? Why do I feel shame and guilt? Why do I feel embarrassed? Why do I feel anger and agitation, say, leave me alone? Why do I feel stubborn and oppositionally defiant, right? Why do I feel that way, right? So now, people say they're food addicted. Very few people understand the insight. Food addiction manipulates how you feel. If my wife says, hey, you got a flat tire, don't drive, I'm grateful. I got vitamin G. I got gratitude, right? I'm like, oh my God, thank you. I never once, when my wife said, maybe you shouldn't eat that, said, oh my God, thank you, right? So you have to understand that food addiction, it is an emotional disconnect. And so your emotions don't line up with your goals, and your emotions sustain the addiction, right? And so this concept is very difficult. If you look at the way we ask about addictions, in medicine, it lines up perfectly well, right? Do you want to cut down that substance? Yes, I do. You have this goal you want to cut down. Well, do you get agitated or angry when somebody tells you to cut down? Well, what does that question mean? The question means you have an emotional disconnect from your goal, right? Meaning, like, when it arises where somebody is saying, hey, don't eat that, right? You are ecstatic about it. In fact, you feel the opposite. And what happens is when that emotional disconnect is so great, you have psychologic consequences. When it happens again and again, like you're getting pissed off and you keep maintaining a behavior, the psychologic consequences are shame and guilt, right? And that shame and guilt means the emotional disconnect is so strong and you're so captivated to that behavior, you can't change it, right? Despite like wanting to and being prompted to, you're not doing it. Then now you have psychological distress. And when that psychological distress becomes so great, meaning the intense shame and guilt for months to years, whatever it is, you will eventually change your behavior to accommodate the psychological distress, meaning you're not going to stop the eating, you're going to hide the eating. You're going to hide the wrappers, hide the, you're going to sneak, you're going to eat before you go somewhere. You're going to not eat in front of other people because of how you feel about it and ashamed about it. And you're going to binge eat alone. So what's happening now is this process, the emotional disconnect is so great. The psychological distress is so great that that process is now changing your behavior to accommodate your use. And how can we educate a patient that this is what's going on and this is what you're up against when doctors don't even know, right? We were talking about Neil Flock, and I had this grand rounds, and he's like, yeah, this is what he said. He said, which I respect him, by the way, there's not a disparaging against him. I'm not disparaging him, but he's like, after bariatric surgery, some people regain the weight and some people get alcohol abuse and some people get really depressed and suicide. I don't think he understands what is going on here. How can we expect a patient to understand? So it's really hard. How do you reach that person? How do you explain to them this? I don't know, Brian. Maybe Brian's older and wiser than me,
It's amazing, Tro. Someone goes, they're trying out for the Olympics. One person, two people don't make the team. One person goes, screw it, I'm not trying anymore. The other one goes, I'm going to work harder and I'm going to make the team. So it's so much our psychology of how we deal with life. And some people go through stressful times and they go, you know what, it'll get better. We went through COVID lockdowns. And the whole time I knew it's going to get better. It's not going to be locked down for the next 30 years. We'll figure this out, or we get over it. We figure it out. So it's one of those things where you could wring your hands every night. I'm reading a lot on the power of the mind and attitudes and all that. So if you're, a lot of people are going through life like deers. They're fearful of everything. Everything's trying to kill them and they're always nervous. And other people are like lions. They walk through and go, I'm not going to worry about everything. No one's trying to kill me. Like, I can defend myself. So if your alarm is set to sensitive and your car alarm goes off all the time, you're running outside, freaking out, someone's breaking into my car, or you realize every time the wind blows, my alarm goes off. So some people's alarm goes off all the time. And some people have one little thing happens and they go off the rails forever. Other people have one thing happen. They go, okay, I blew it yesterday. I can get back to tomorrow. No damage, no foul. So that's why the continuous glucose monitor and all the monitoring is so helpful, because if we're addicted to something, it's not intellectual. If I'm afraid of spiders, I know that spider, that little daddy long legs isn't going to hurt me, but I'm still fearful of it. But it's not what you think about it logically and you go, okay, that's why we have the frontal lobe to say, hey, it's not that big of a deal. Don't freak out about this thing. Don't freak out about everything. Because we see some people are on this chronic sympathetic drive. They're stressed, tense, worried. I can predict, Tro, unless they change their personality, people come in. The classic for me is the real estate agent. She has 1,000 things going on at once, 2 kids at home, marital problems, drinking every night, and she can't work out. She doesn't have time to work out. She doesn't have time to plan her meals. She doesn't have time. Good luck. It's going to be a disaster course. But if those same people can say, you know what, I got to simplify my life. Let me get counseling with my marriage. Let me work on childhood issues, whatever it is, that they do great. They could do fantastic. But coming in, you're at a major disadvantage if you're on, like, even I was thinking about it, even those indie drivers, they put on the brakes around the corners. When the corners come, you have to slow down and figure it out. You can't just go full acceleration around the curve, or you're going to end up in the stands, right? And kill a bunch of people and have wreckage everywhere. So part of it's like how you deal with life. And I think that's why I really started focusing more on metabolic health. Now, that being said, if we can get the diet right, we know the mood and energy and focus and relationships and all those things get better. But sometimes when you're in a bad relationship and you're not sleeping in your tents, even the diet's not going to help you. You got to do the whole picture. It's those 5 things that Ben Bickman talks about. That's why I love the guy so much, because it's true. I have people doing a perfect ketogenic diet and they're a disaster still. They're counting every calorie. They're weighing themselves 5 times a day. They're stressed out. They can't breathe. They can't sit down with their husband because they have to go work out right now. And it's like, just chill. Take a look at the ocean. Go do stuff you enjoy doing. Because I always ask people, what do you do for fun? And I'm telling you, 80% of the time, people look back at me like it's a trick question. Like, what do you do for fun? What do you like to do? I'm like, I work and I go home. I always ask,
apart from eating out, what do you do on weekends that you enjoy the most?
Yeah.
And most of them go quiet. And I say, you see how difficult that is? Because we've incorporated the eating in our leisure so badly that we don't even know what to do, how to plan the weekends if we take off the eating out. So it's very, like, it's a severe problem we have on cultural habits.
I had
Yes.
just had that discussion with the patient yesterday, and I said, well, do you get together with friends? Yeah, but we always go out to dinner. It's like, can't you get out and go kayaking, or get together and go for a hike, or go for a walk, or just talk about your kids, or play games, like have
Sauna.
dinner? Yeah, all those things. Yeah, anything you can do where you find that peace. And that's the important part of this that people are missing. And that's what in the low carb community, I think, as a matter of fact, Tro, there's a great paper I just posted about it. And it's talking about loneliness, metabolic disease, and mental health, and how they're all connected. The editor, Dom DeAgostino, right? And I was like, wow, because I was lamenting, going, how come the low carb people aren't talking about this? Like there's a physiologic effect of it's a ton of physiology. If you're lonely and not sleeping, you're stressed and worried and tense, and you can't laugh, like go laugh. That's probably gonna be better for you. Like you could go without cookies and be bitter all the time, and you're not gonna have the benefit. You might as well laugh and have a cookie, right? Lighten up a little bit here and there, if you're not a food addicted, of course. But I'm seeing, like, if we can only, like Tro and I have said, Tro, I think you probably even said it first, the biggest indicators of failure on any lifestyle change are going to be stress and lack of family support. And those two go hand in hand for sure most of the time. So if people have good support, they go, hey, you're doing this, we got you. But other people will say, oh, don't do low carb here, it's going to kill you. Here, have a cookie. Here, do this. You know what I mean? And they're set up for failure, because if you're addicted and then you have the thing you're addicted to, you're going down that road again. So it's really, and people aren't trying to be mean to you. They love you, but they're like, they didn't worry about you when you were 400 pounds and eat cookies every day. But as soon as you start saying, hey, I'm going to have a steak and eat some vegetables for dinner, they go, oh my gosh, you're crazy. What are you going to do? Right, Tro? It happens all the time.
Look, I'm going to tell you that social support is so key. And I think like one of the things that we've talked about here that I think is so critical is if you're going to remove away that this person's coping, right? So how did the food addiction get there? Right? How did it get there? Right? It could have just happened physiologically. It's an addictive substance and habit and whatever. It could also be that they are self-medicating, right? It could also be that they're self-medicating, some underlying anxiety, lack of fulfillment, lack of, other things that make them happy, lack of support, right? People trying to keep them stuck where they are, right? Whatever it is, right? So I think, your question was critical, which is, what other things make you happy besides eating? Because the minute you take away your best friend, what are we doing? How are you going to find enjoyment? So food addiction, I'm telling you, it's one of the most vulnerable. If a doctor can address food addiction, do never leave that doctor. Because there are very few. I've met maybe like 5, maybe 3 of them are here. One of them's in the UK, Dr. Unwin, and maybe Rob Sivis, maybe Vera Tarman, right? I could count them on my finger, right? So because it's so hard, it's hard for the patient to understand. You can't trust your emotions. You can't trust your logic. You have too much psychological distress, the all or none thinking you have, the learned helplessness that you have, your psychology, your mentality, your outlook, it's all not trustable, right? And that's a hard message. Like, what do you mean I can't trust? Like, look at me. I'm a grown doctor. My wife tells me to put down the pizza and I have all these negative emotions. Right. So
and part of it is if you're self-motivated or whether someone else is telling you, like if you're losing weight because someone tells you have to lose weight, is different than you saying, hey, look, I want to make my life better. Like when it's on your motivation. Like I was looking at a study they did with mice and they put them on the treadmill. Like one mouse had control of whether the treadmill went. The other one, if the other one exercised, it had to. They couldn't see each other. So the one who exercised because they wanted to had major physiologic benefits from parasympathetic and sympathetic and stress hormones going down. The other one who was like laying there, I don't want to exercise. You're making me exercise now. Didn't get the benefits of that. It's the same thing. And I'm telling you, there's studies on this of if I'm helping Tro and I resent helping Tro and I'm bitter about it the whole time, like, I don't want to help him, but I'm going to help him move, which is moving again and doing stupid stuff, then I don't get the physiologic benefit. But if I go, I really want to help Tro, I can hang out with him and we can put his stuff together. It'll be fun and we'll laugh and we'll tell jokes. Then all your physiologic stuff gets better. So a lot of it's the attitude we have towards stuff. So if you're exercising because you have to exercise, you're like, I'm trying to lose weight, so I have to, and we all know it doesn't work for weight loss, right? It may help with maintaining weight loss and those habits, but If you're exercising like crazy and eating terrible food all the time, you're not going to get the benefit of someone who's doing it all. And so my patients who do great are the ones who go, hey, I'm working out 3 days a week. I'm doing this. And they're making these changes, little changes here and there. And they're not being dramatic and working out 3 hours a day, but they go, hey, I'm doing 20 minutes here. I went for a walk. Oh, instead of taking the elevator, I took the stairs, whatever. Those little things add up over time. So it's pretty amazing though about the attitude you have towards it too. And people, like some people come to me, they're like, oh my gosh, like how often can I have pizza? If I want to cheat, how many cheat days do I get? Like that's in their mind first, not saying, hey, I really want to get healthy. You tell me what to do and I'm doing it. It's a different mindset. And that makes a different mindset's a huge thing in this.
Are you aware of that Alia Crumb's work on mindset? It's really amazing.
Help us.
The job.
Educate us. Tell us about it.
What's the last name?
Alia, I think it's Alia Crum or Scrum, something like this. But she's from, I think it's Yale. I'll remember which university she's from, but she studies a lot mindset, the power of mindsets, and it's not in the lame side. Like she studies how the placebo effect can help the actual medication that we know it work even better. And she studies even like why one of the three of us may help more a patient with food addiction than a doctor that has no idea of what food addiction is, because your patient knows he can trust you. He knows you are well educated on medicine and also on how difficult it is to implement the change you suggested for him in his life. Like he knows, you understand he has other stuff going on apart from the lifestyle recommendation you give to them. So she studies all this using the placebo effect as something better, like to increase the response, and not only look at placebo as something that we would discard, like, oh, placebo means nothing and it's only worth for a randomized controlled trial. So it's really nice the job she does on this. And she studied the mindset on food as well, checking out how the mindset on diet changes the way we see and we taste things. Like she has an experiment on milkshakes that she gets.
I know that. I know exactly.
Yeah,
this
the
one.
milkshake study is it's hers. It's from her group. So she studies a lot of different effects on exercise, on food, and also on stress. And her work on stress is the most amazing one. And they randomized groups. One group watched a 20-minute video talking about how stress is bad for you, how stress is gonna kill you, and how stress is horrible and stuff. And then to the other group, they educated them on how stress can enhance your skills and help you out with all of other development skills, not only health. So it's really cool to see the effect that some videos like that do. And also it's encouraging for us that we have like social media. We're active on social media. So it's really important that we always spread the word on this, because mindsets are really shaped on what people watch and discard watching. So it's very important that we always keep on spreading the word.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because there was also a study they did with placebo effect, and they took, they say, well, people think it's helping them, and so what they did is they would go, okay, Tro, you are in the control group, you are getting a placebo, you will get the placebo, you will not get the medicine. It's a placebo, and they tell you it's a placebo. You say, yes, I know, I signed the paper, yes, I'm getting a placebo. They give you the placebo and you get better. Even knowing it's a placebo, they say subconsciously your brain says, well, if they're giving me a pill, it has to help me. And so like then maybe it calms your stress a little bit. Maybe it does all these other things. So it's fascinating, this kind of data. And then I'm not sure if it was her or someone else similar, but they did a study with maids, and they split them into two groups. And one group, they said,
her.
Yeah, the same thing with maids. And they go, they told the maids, hey, what you're doing, you're getting so much exercise during the day. Like you're getting plenty of exercise. You're meeting the guidelines for exercise. The other group, they didn't say anything to. The one that they said that their work was making them healthier, started losing weight just from that, with no change in anything.
What's amazing is that she figured out a way to do exercise, placebo for exercise. I think she's just genius. I love her work, and she's now using the placebo effect to make food allergy treatments in small kids, like peanuts and very difficult stuff. She's the one that's guiding the same kind of experiment using this placebo effect to talk about how the side effects when they try to do, I don't know the word for it, but they inoculate a little bit of the allergen, the prick test, you know?
Sensitivity, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when they do it, usually the parents get so freaked out that the kids have like a worse reaction and the treatment doesn't work very well. So they decided to use the placebo effect, and they used it to say, well, if you have any symptoms, it's a good thing. It means it's working. Just like we do when you start fasting, and then you get migraines and bad breath for keto breath, and we say, well, it's bad, but it's good on you.
You're releasing all your toxins, you're getting them out of your system, right?
Exactly. So it's the same mindset, and it works. So it's really amazing how the mindset is a game changer when we're trying to struggle for something so hard to fight.
Yeah, and sometimes, you know, when you look at it, why does Dr. Unwin have such success? And he says, so what would you do if you lost 50 pounds? What would you be doing? What would change in your life? And he gives them that picture in their head. And I'm telling you, the mindset is incredible. Like people who say, look, I'm going to get this time on my race. I'm going to like mindset. It's so intriguing. Like for instance, this guy Bannister, I think 1958 broke the 4-minute mile. They said it can't be done. It's impossible. There's no one who could break it. It's physiologically impossible. All the experts say it's impossible. So he breaks the record. He held the record for 46 days till someone else broke the record because they realized it could be done. Right. And now we have almost 2,000 people who broke a 4-minute mile. So these things, like once you say it can be, like for us, when people say, do you think I could ever come off insulin? Well, I have 30 patients who've come off insulin. Do you want to talk to one of them? Right. So when they have the hope that they can, and then they're willing to make those changes, like when you were talking, I was thinking about it with your patient with fatty liver disease, NASH, that's a precursor to cirrhosis, dying of a horrible death. And if you realize like, hey, here's what we can do to help you. Here's the steps it's going to take. Here's what we can prevent. You can realize that. So for us, all of us, our best patients, the newly diagnosed diabetic, right? Because they're like, I'm scared. I don't want to shoot insulin. I know what happened to my grandpa. Okay, what do I got to do? Let's do this. And they come off insulin very easily. But if you've been on for 30 years, it's going to be a lot of challenging, and you got to be patient with that. So there's a lot of type 2 diabetics, I want to say. But, there's so much when you say, yeah, we could at least minimize. And if we can minimize your insulin, you get more insulin sensitive. Let's talk about insulin sensitivity. How do we do that? Oh, those same 5 things that Ben Dickman's been talking about, right? So the treatment's the same. It's just really how much of a benefit are we going to get? Is everyone coming off insulin? Of course not. If they're type 1 diabetics and they don't make insulin, we're kind of stuck, but we can minimize them from taking 80 units a day down to 12. And that's going to make you live longer in itself. And your mood's going to be better, and your energy and your back pain and all these other things. So all these things, I'm so glad we're talking about these things, because we haven't really talked about this a lot, but we see it, the mental part of all this. Like, how is it someone hits a bump in the road and they just keep going, and other people hit a bump in the road and they're done. They fold up the tent and they leave, And it's those people who silently leave that we can't help. And I'll tell you, Tro, we have to get him on. Dr. Folletti, one of the nicest guys, he actually called me and we had a nice discussion with the ACE questionnaire. And he says that was the thing, is he was wondering, instead of just focus, like we have a tendency, myself included, to focus on the people who've really succeeded, but we're about the people who failed. Right. And he went and met with the people.
I always think about them. And that's why I'm here today.
Yeah. And it's why are they failing?
We should keep thinking about those people. Honestly, that should be our focus, not the people who do well. Who are we failing? How can we help them? What can we offer differently? What can we do differently? These are the most important questions, in my opinion, for our practice, because the alternative is surgery and medications. That's what they're headed for, right? So if we don't improve, if we don't focus on how do we reach these people, they're gone. They're going to people who are going to take advantage of them. Right. And I mean that. I'm not saying surgery and medications don't help, just full stop. They can help. Right. They can help. These are helpful. But
we have a bias, though, we get to see the worst results from regaining weight from bariatric surgery. And they're already malnourished, depressed, and it's very hard to get back to them. So I'm always like, although I know it's a treatment, we know it works for some people. If we knew exactly how to define food addiction, I would bet money that exactly the group that regains is exactly the ones that had food addiction. And the other half that really had benefited from the surgery are usually the ones that just needed more education. So like you end up thinking about that. Is it really a good thing that we're doing? So it's a very philosophical question, but as we don't define food addiction very well yet, I think this is a discussion we're gonna have like in 30 years, if we're lucky.
Yeah, and if you look at it, you know, the good news for you and the bad news for people is because your husband's line of work, right? Thyroid cancers are going up. And then we know these new miracle drugs that everyone's talking about increase your risk of thyroid cancer. Why?
Yes.
We don't know why. I don't know why. Tro, do you know why? I don't know why, but it definitely increases risk. And I've seen several people already that have had thyroid cancer.
Mechanisms. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's mechanism we don't understand, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of, you have to look at the long term. And some of these people, you say, hey, look, there's increased risk of thyroid cancer. I go, hey, if I can lose weight, I don't care. I want it now. I want the microwave. I don't want to do the slow way. You know, it's, you know, put me on prednisone or steroids or whatever, you know, control. And that's the thing, because Tro has talked about a lot, you know, hyperpalatable foods, satiety and all these things. But I have people, they have binge eating disorder. And if I give them a drug to block their appetite, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because they ate a big steak and had a huge dinner. Then they go home and binge after that. They're full. Right? Why is it that they're binging now on high carbohydrate almost exclusively? Right? What is it? Is it dopamine? Is it that you need certain things to feel better, or that you feel bad about yourself and that makes you feel better for a few seconds, and then you know it's going to be painful down the road, but I don't care because right now I want to feel good. You know, it's just like when we make bad decisions in life, you know, like picking up people at bars, whatever it is that we shouldn't be doing. And you go, why is it? And that's the thing. And it goes back to the Bible times when he goes, I know what I should do, but I'm doing the wrong stuff anyways. I know I should eat. That's why I'm getting back to just being educated is not enough, right? It's really having the support, having the social, you know, connections, you know, that, you know, spending time doing stuff you enjoy. And so many people just don't do that. They don't say, you know, I can't take a day. I mean, I'll tell you, one of the big guys who saved my life is Rob Sivis. When he gave a talk on dopamine fasting and sitting there for 3 days, and I sat there and thought, and I'm a chill, you all know I'm a pretty chill guy. And I started getting anxious. And I'm like, why am I anxious? Because I'm like sitting there 3 days doing nothing except writing stuff down and like not accomplishing something stressed me out. Because I knew if I did that, it would take me 6 weeks to catch up at work. And all these people would be mad at me. And the patients would be, because I was on a treadmill, I was sprinting all the time. Right. So when you start realizing, okay, if I can't take a day and just relax, like, and people listening know what I'm talking about. People who are running corporations, you have a lot of responsibilities. When you don't shut down, you're like that race car driver who never takes a foot off the gas pedal. You got to slow down and hit the brakes sometimes. If you don't, your engine's going to blow and you're going to lose the race. You will, and you'll lose your family and all these other things. So really putting things in perspective. My patients who are Zen and go, oh yeah, I'll just change this. And it's like you said, it's an education thing is different than true food addiction. Two different things we're dealing with. And so many other factors that are involved. Just that you feel happier when you eat. It's a celebration of life when you eat. When someone dies, you eat to comfort yourself, whatever it is. But so many people focus, that's their whole thing. It's like, man, if I can't eat pizza every day, life's not worth living, even though you're 400 pounds, you know?
This is so critical, you know, so understanding that when you're removing a coping mechanism, that you need to replace it with some sort of reward or some sort of, you know, something that brings joy, which comes back to that question you asked. You know, what are other things you enjoy doing? Because the minute we take your best friend away, guess what's going to happen? Right? Guess what's going to, you're having now a comfort deficiency. You're having a emotional reward deficiency, a dopamine deficiency, which means we better find something healthy that you're happy with to turn to when you need some sort of enjoyment, because we all deserve enjoyment in our lives. Fulfillment. So I think that's that's critical. And I don't know how we can teach that. I don't know if it's teachable. You know, we can't give a medication to give personalized enjoyment.
Yes. Have you read the Hacking of the American Mind?
Yeah. Great book. Excellent book.
Yeah. I think that's the only book ever that really, like, Robert Lustig has really delved into this what we're talking about right now, which is confounding happiness with pleasure, and no one knows the difference. So they have no idea that removing the pizza is not going to make them unhappy. It's just going to make them like missing the drug. And I've never read any book that talked about what we're talking about here in a book like Robert Lustig has. And I think it's amazing. And for the ones that are watching us right now, if it rings any bell, I would really recommend this book.
Well, and just like Jason Fung too, saying, hey, if you fast, you're not going to get weak and tired and confused and lazy, right? When people are fasting, they feel great a lot of times, especially if they have autoimmune problems and different, mental issues going on. So ketosis, there's a role for ketosis. There's a role for all these things. So you realize, like, how do we pull the levers and get ourselves to a point where we have success? We all struggle. I mean, there's times when we, forget it. It's not worth working out every day. It's not worth this. It's not worth that. But then, over time, you start realizing, that things are paying off. And I think we have to see the fruit of our labor sometimes. So some people are really, like, if they don't lose 30 pounds in the first week, they go, forget it. The keto doesn't work. It's not good. Right. So it's all those things. And I think, expectations and saying, hey, look, that's not reality for most people. What you're doing is normal. You're losing 2 pounds a week. We're on track. We're doing great. We're not in a rush here. So there's a lot. And I'm telling you, I'm looking at data on sleep deprivation and stress and loneliness and the physiologic effects. And you go, oh my gosh, no wonder so many people are struggling right now. And it's really, really a hard time. So part of it is doing what we're doing, connecting, sharing, debating, discussing, laughing together, or watching, if you think the Three Stooges are funny, watch the Three Stooges, no matter what your neighbors say, right? Whatever. If you enjoy something, then as long as it's not detrimental to your health, obviously, but like what you're saying too, and Rob has said that, Rob Sivers has said this too, is you have to find something to fill that gap. Like if I'm working in the garage and I have a project, man, I'll forget about breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like I don't even think about it. But what's interesting that I've noticed in myself, and I've seen this in patients a lot, I think one of the most dangerous places for us on a weight loss journey and lifestyle journey is the house. Because that's when the cookies are in the counter, things, and you say, oh, I worked so hard today, I deserve to have a little extra, right?
Pantry, right? The pantry.
The pantry's there. I mean, I have a lady, she's had a problem with granolas, gained 30 pounds eating granola all the time. She goes out of town for a week. For 6 days, she doesn't eat granola. The night before she meets with me, she gets home late and goes right to the pantry and eats granola. She goes, I'm so frustrated, I was going to cancel with you. I'm like, you gave up granola for 6 days and were you craving it? No, I didn't even think about it. But as soon as I walked in the house, I thought of granola. And she's had family stress at the house, right? So that was her way of dealing with the stress. So many people I know go on vacation, they lose weight because they're not snacking all the time. Or if they have a house guest, they don't snack in front of the house guest because they're embarrassed. Whatever it is, there's some things that, and plus the house is the biggest source of stress for a lot of people, right? And for other people, it's like, for me, it's my sanctuary. So you go, I'm at my sanctuary, I can let my guard down now, right? At work, I don't think about food all day, but if I get home at 4, I think about food. If I get home at 7, I think about food. If I'm fasting that day and I know it, I don't even think about food when I walk home. It doesn't matter when I walk in that door. So there's things like that. This mindset is so huge of how we deal with life and whether it's our comfort or our stress relief or whatever it is, we have to figure that out for ourselves typically. Like Tro says, like you can't just give a pill for happiness and relationship, but if you love to play tennis, join a tennis club. Go play tennis after dinner. Go for a walk with your partner and talk about life, or go look at birds. Tro, I was thinking about you yesterday. You know what happened? I wish I had my phone with me. I go for a walk and I go by this apartment complex and someone spilled their French fries and they were probably devastated by that. But I see a squirrel, a bird, and a bunny fighting over the French fries. Like they're all there, like getting the French fries. I was like, oh my gosh, man, this either it's like a joke I can make up, or if I had a picture to take a picture, it was crazy. Like, you think that's not addictive that these guys are all like risking their lives to get the French fries? Just like your little mouse. I was thinking about it because
I always remember, Tro, because of your lectures. I've seen some of your lectures.
Yeah, the pizza rat. The pizza rat is dragging
It's amazing. I always think about you, Tro, as well when you see
pizza
animals searching. No, when I see animals searching modern diet foods. It's funny.
Yeah.
And that's the whole argument for, stress. It's like, okay, if you put all kinds of, if you have people on vacation leaving junk food around, all the animals there get fat, and they go, oh, all of a sudden they got lazy, watch TV, and all these explanations they try to give. When you
Lack
say
of CrossFit,
it's genetic, it's genetic that they got obese because that. No, it's not genetics, because they were eating pizza every time because people left it there and they had access to it. So it's all those things. So when these guys, and that's the thing with Tro and that we've talked about, is all these guys, Kevin Hall, all these guys, you go, okay, you give them this many calories, you do this. Clearly it's calories in, calories out. Okay. How about my guy who gained 23 pounds in 1 year, who's never had a weight problem when he's stressed out being with his mom, not changing his diet, exercise, or alcohol intake? Is that calories in, calories out, or is there more to the story? Is it physiologic that he gained 23 pounds because he's waking up 4 times a night, checking on mom? He's worried about mom. He's, taking her to the doctors, cleaning up when she has an accident. That's stressful, and that affects us. So if you say that doesn't have an effect, I'm telling you, I have tons of data on that, and there's studies showing this. So you can't just say, okay, just do 500 calories. Okay, my wife just left me, and you're telling me not to, my way of dealing with it is cookies. You don't think I'm going to go eat cookies, whatever it is. And so we tend to oversimplify and realize, like, we're taking care of actual patients who are dealing with relationships, they're dealing with work stress, they're dealing with kids acting like idiots or whatever they're going through. And that's why we have to address those things. We have to look at how's life, how's things. That's why I ask people all the time, how's life? And I could tell within 2 seconds how things are going this week. I'm
going to pose a question talking about these situations. When we know the patient has food addiction, and he's going through a very difficult situation that is even hard for us to pretend it's okay. He'll figure it out, but it's hard for us to listen to what's going on. I usually know that I'm wrong by doing this, but I do it anyway, because we know when food addiction is on, you have to remove completely the drugs. So it would be the same for food, but in this kind of patients, I try to scale it down, even though I know it's not gonna it's not gonna be very effective, but I think it's better than leaving him like eating everything he sees in front of it. But I usually let them eat like carbs, but like potatoes and roots and fruits instead of highly processed. I know it's not the best, but do you have anything else other than what I do to suggest? Do you do the same? What's your approach in this kind of situation that's very hard for us?
Maybe we can, end it with this one. We have 2 mottos, which is, in all, like, eat low carb, live to fight another day. So I'm a big proponent in replace, if you cannot restrict something. So we have everybody do an audit on themselves. What are the foods you cannot live without? And everybody's like, oh, I'll never eat pizza again. I'll never have cookies again. I'll never, I can't, that's not true. Mm-hmm. Right? Maybe it's true, right? Maybe it's true, like, but is that true to you? Like, I actually ask them, is that realistic? And most of the time they say no. So I said, great, let's write a list of everything you're going to struggle with and everything you've historically struggled, pizza, cookies, whatever it is. And we come up with what we're going to do when you crave those foods. What is it we're going to do? Right? And some of them, it's really easy. Like, I want ice cream. Okay, we'll do like a protein shake, right? With ice, and, we'll make it like a smoothie. Fine, that's easy. Some of them are harder, like pizza. We can make a meat pizza. We can make a low carb. We can use almond flour dough. We can use, plug for my wife's company, Rosette's, right? So I'm a big believer in replace what you can't restrict. Now, the problem with that, and it is a problem, is you have to pair it with another message, which is, that is break the glass in case of emergency. It is not like, it's like a spare tire. You don't go and put your spare tire on every day and drive around just because. It's not healthy to just use a spare tire. No, spare tire has a purpose. When you need it and you have a problem and you're in a situation where you're going to lose control, then you put on the spare tire. You call the service. This is what I'm going to do. Use the spare tire, and then you go fix your car. Right? So this is so important, right? If you're going to use replacements, because if you end up using it every day, you might as well be eating the pizza. I mean, I don't believe that in my heart of hearts, but from a habit standpoint, certainly it's not good. So we have two sayings. One, break the glass in case of emergency, which means like, you know, if you're in a situation where your cravings are leading you to somewhere where it's undesirable, well, then use the things we planned for. And then replace what you can't restrict. If you know that you cannot live without this thing, you better find a way to manage it that's realistic, right? And some people, I have sort of stayed in that area where I flirt with these foods, and it's not a problem for me. But there are some people who cannot flirt with them, and they know it, and they tell you, and then it's like, well, we got to get rid of it completely. So there are those people out there. So that's my approach.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing with alcohol, right? If you're an alcoholic, every time you get someone upset with you and you drink, then you're gonna have a problem. It's an issue. So sometimes you have to say I have zero tolerance. I have people that go, I have zero tolerance. If I have artificial sweeteners, I crave cookies all the time. It messes with my brain. If I'm carnivore, I do great. I don't have to worry about it. It's not an option. And that's what I mean. There's that whole thing is like, okay, if I'm fasting today, you know, you could cook food in front of me. I could smell it. I'm not going to eat it. I'm done. I'm not doing it. So sometimes it's a mindset thing, but I think a lot of people, it's a hard thing because they could blow it every week. And so, you know, I have to ask the question at some point and say, okay, are you better off eating real pizza? And the other thing is for people, they'll ask themselves, is it worth it or not? So for instance, if you have Costco pizza that I've had 1,000 times, probably not worth it, right? To have a piece of pizza. But if your grandma makes pizza once a year and you go over and have a pizza party, well, you're probably going to go enjoy it. It's fresh ingredients and you enjoy it, and it's very rare. So if you could do it very rarely, the less frequently, the better you're going to be in the long run. And the other thing is, you can't eat pizza and do all this stuff and then be frustrated you're not getting results. If you want the results bad enough, you go, not worth it. It's not worth it for me to have pizza because I'm going to be upset when my sugars go up or when I have to weigh in next week or whatever it is. So sometimes just putting in perspective when you go, and that's why I mean, people learn. That's what's great about the continuous glucose monitor. I know it's controversial, but the reality is when people go, yeah, it's not worth it. When I see my sugar go to 300 when I have cookies, I go, it's not worth it, because they look at that and they go, yeah, cookies, 300 sugar, not worth it. Instead of saying cookies, oh, I lived my childhood fantasies and I was happy back then and all that. When you change it and go, yeah, it's not worth it anymore. And their decision, it's not me telling them. They look and they go, it's not worth it. Right? That's your decision to say it's not worth it anymore. I don't want to feel bad. I don't want to have bad self-esteem. And when you go through hard stuff, you go, okay, it's not worth it anymore. Like that. If you tell me, look, Brian, if you don't fix this fatty liver disease you have, you're going towards the road of cirrhosis. You're gonna be throwing up blood. Here's what's coming for you. Then I go, okay, I could give up cookies and soda. It's not that big of it's not a big trade-off to say I'm going to be drawing fluid out of your belly every day, you know, and that's what your life's going to be. You go, it's not worth it. So with us, you know, people have seen we've seen it. That's why Tro gets upset and I get upset too, because we've seen the amputations, we've seen the non-healing ulcers, we've seen all the blindness, the kidney failure, suicide from pain, neuropathic pain, all these things that come with poorly controlled sugars. If you know what's coming, it's easier to say, yeah, it's not worth it to have that soda. No matter how much it tastes great at the time, it's not worth it for me. Maybe if I get healthy enough, like people ask, and we say that too, it's like, hey, at some point, can I add in fruit? I think so. You get your sugars under control and your A1C is at 4.9 and your insulin's normal. How much of an effect that can have? If your A1C is 18, you know, if you're at 11 and your insulin's 58, I don't think you need to do that for a long time, right? But maybe just saying, hey, maybe someday I can go back to having some raspberries and blueberries and you know, so most people who understand it's easy when they see the long term. But you know, the bad habits are short-term benefits, good habits are long-term to see the benefits. You know, so that's the difference.
Guys, I think we should. Well, I got to part ways. I don't know. I
got a patient right now
too, and it's been an hour and a half. Thank you for the listeners for coming, Doc. It's always such a pleasure to
Doc, how do people track you down and find you? First of all, on Twitter,
me.
Facebook, whatever, all that stuff. Yeah,
I'm in Instagram and YouTube. It's at Dr. Maira Soliani. It's very hard. Maybe if we let
We'll
it
put it in the notes.
show notes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, we have. I think we have your info. So good.
Yes, so thank you
gotta
so
go over.
much. I've learned a lot. It was a pleasure.
No, thank you. And we learned
We
it. And
learned a lot.
yeah, and we thank you for, you know, what you're doing and stepping out. I mean, anesthesiologist is the best job because you could just put people to sleep. You don't have to talk to them a
No,
lot.
but I couldn't, once you see, you can unsee. So I couldn't stand amputating the diabetics and thinking, well, he's gonna eat after this surgery and he's gonna have cookies and margarine. So it was unbearable for me. That's why I shifted. I couldn't stand anymore seeing everything I learned and watching those patients. So that's why we're here.
And thank you. And thank you. And your patients, you know, our patients, they're not going to know what we're doing for them. Probably they'll never know because they don't see the train wreck. If they never blow up their engine, we don't need to change the engine. So just changing the oil and helping people get on track and you know, you're doing, I love your questions too. Is like, how much is education? That's a component. How much is holding their hands? How much is encouragement? How much is just being in their corner? How much is building a community like we're all doing? How much is that influence? Huge influence, huge influence. To know you're not the only one struggling, the only one's having a bad time. And it's amazing when we can put our patients together and we can shut up and they can help each other. I love it every week. Someone will go, hey, what Tom said 2 weeks ago really changed my life. Thanks, Tom. And Tom's smiling and happy because he had to learn that lesson and then he passed on to the next person. And that's kind of what we're doing here too. So, yeah, I'm very happy for your patients. Anyone in Brazil, if you're going to Brazil, we know the doctor for you here now.
Yeah, we got to get to
Tro,
Brazil soon. We got to get to Brazil. I got to get to my patients, guys. It's been an honor. Thank you, both of you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
All right.
Get to see each other soon.
Yes.
Bye.